Right, I'm Angela Ruth Strong, here with Jeff Brown, and you can find us online. My blog is Moving On After He Moves Out, and Jeff has Grace for Divorce Ministry. And I actually found him when I was broken down in church one day. I'm all crying, and the lady next to me asked how she could pray for me. And I said, please pray for my marriage. So she gave me a card for the divorce class, and I was like, I hope I don't need it. But when I did need it, I ended up going to the class, and I'm so grateful. And Jeff has been my Facebook friend, so when I started getting into a relationship, he played the fatherly role and asked questions, the very practical kinds of questions. And he's been full of great advice, and I so appreciate it, and so I want to share that with all of you.
Well, thanks so much, Angela. It's good to see you again, and it's good to be able to hang out. And this is our first video blog.
So, Jeff, I attended your class, but I really don't know your story and your background and what brought you to this place where you can minister to.
Well, I think that it's very, very difficult for a person to be able to have ministry and have input to people who are going through a divorce unless you've been through one yourself. We do certainly have a background in it, both my wife and I do. In my case, I was an upside-down kid who kind of grew up into an upside-down young adult. And I met someone who was certainly more experienced in relationships than I was. We got together, and we were not Christians, so we moved in together, and everything seemed to go mostly okay. I mean, we didn't fight any more or any less than anybody else we knew did. And so we did the next thing that you do, and we got married, and we were relatively happy for a couple of years, had a child in that time period. But this woman had a hidden agenda. This woman had a hidden life, a secret life that I just wasn't aware of. There was someone from her past that she just could not let go of. She just struggled with these past memories of this person. Every year, couple of years or so, this individual would come back into the picture. He would be available, and all of a sudden we started having trouble that I wasn't aware what the source was. I just know that it was big trouble, and it was unfixable. And at that point, that became the catalyst for her to say, well, I'm leaving. And so away she would go. And I really didn't discover until after a number of these separations and liaisons with this individual that that was really the root cause of it. And
how did you discover it?
She confided in a pastor, actually, and one of the separations, because I was so broken and upset, and I went to him, she's going, and he said, I told her I would not tell you, but you need to know that there is someone else, there has been someone else for a very, 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 very long time. But even because of that, I had a hard time letting go of her, and so even though we divorced in that particular separation, we actually, because she said to me that she really wanted to change and that she was done with him, that she wanted to be married, and we actually remarried. It was a short-lived remarriage because the individual was not really out of the picture at all. But it was a difficult situation and fraught with lots and lots of infidelity. She has her life now. In talking about it, it feels like ancient history.
Right.
And our goal is, as we talk to people, is that they are capable one day to make it ancient history in their lives as well.
So
for some, it's harder than others, but yeah.
So you had that desire to help other people come through what you've been through. And how did you start the Grace for Divorce class?
Well, yeah, certainly going through it created a passion in me for the circumstance. And so as I was separated from Nicole so many times, I got involved in a little church and began to teach single adults, and then kind of began to have input to this group and input to the to the circumstance of divorce. And admittedly, probably that first input was probably angry input, but over time, developed an ability and a voice to the circumstance. And so started teaching in earnest and learning what I didn't know. And then that was the catalyst for the book, Working Through the Crisis, that has grown into what it is now. But those thoughts and all of those things really happened out of my experience, really, with my first marriage.
Yeah, so then you moved to Boise and started it through your
Right,
church now.
exactly. Through Calvary Chapel now. We moved to Boise. I met Joanne when I was doing that singles group, and so we had our little courtship and talked together and shared together and bonded as a couple. Things changed in California, and so we found ourselves moved to Boise and to Calvary Chapel, where they made a place for our ministry there, and we've been doing it ever since.
Yeah.
Just seasoning the message and figuring out what works and what doesn't.
Is it a 10-week class? I'm trying to remember.
It is 10 weeks. There's a week of introduction, and then there's a closing week where the folks get a little diploma and a certificate and
Did I get a diploma?
and
I don't remember having
a cake. Well, again,
a cake.
It has been a work in progress.
We had the Christmas party.
We did.
So.
And as others have picked up the program, they put their own flavor on it as well. But at least we make available to those who want to do our program the books in packages and a leader's guide that we have and the certificates and everything that anybody would need to make the class work for them. But invariably, they put their own flavor on it.
Right. And it is really eye-opening. And it's validating to realize that you aren't the only person going through it, because it's all right there.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. And that's one of the things, is that people who are going through a divorce, they just really feel like they're the only one in the world that could possibly feel the way they feel, to be as broken and upside down as they are. But the fact is that it's kind of a universal experience. There is, in most cases, there's a person who leaves. We affectionately refer to them as the dumper, and that's not kind, but possibly fitting. And then, of course, if not the dumpy, then the person who has been left behind. And in most cases, certainly where there's a level of brokenness, where someone would seek out a class, we rarely see dumpers. We usually see the person who has been left behind, and they just really are puzzled and wondering what the heck, beyond puzzled, obviously, but wondering what the heck they're going to do now, and wondering what their life is going to look like, and where's God in the midst of all of this, and how do I make sense of all of this? And so when they come into a class like ours, that's the feeling, the feeling of, oh my goodness, And our hope is that that's comforting. It was to me in finding others who were feeling the same way I was.
Yeah, so mostly it's what you call givers in the class, right?
Givers
versus takers.
Rescuers versus
rescuers.
users. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there was actually one girl in my group who would have been the dumpy. And when she talked about her ex, it just made me think, is that how my husband saw me?
Yeah,
it was just very eye-opening to see it from a different perspective.
Exactly. It is a mindset among people who abandon a marriage, and that mindset does appear to be mostly universal. And it's very, very sad. You really wonder where they get these notions, because you look at other people whose relationships have survived, and you recognize, well, they're not that much different than I am.
Right.
How come they figured it out and we couldn't? And there aren't any easy answers to those questions. Essentially, you just have to figure it out, forgive, and move on.
So rescuers and, what was the other one?
Rescuers and users, rescuers and takers, exactly.
Yeah, and you did used to talk about how a rescuer and a user didn't really work well together, but a rescuer and a rescuer, or a user and a user, are a better fit?
Well, two rescuers, two givers can make a real quality relationship because they balance each other out and they give to the other's weakness and give into the other's strengths, and they figure it out. Two givers can do really, really well. When two takers get together, when two users get together, usually what you find is a couple who makes their life about stuff. And so they get this box, that looks like a house, and they stuff it full of things, and they make their lives about the things that they have, and how awesome they are. And they really lose track. Sometimes those couples do well, but essentially the battle is inside the fort. And for Christians, we understand that the battle was never designed to be inside the fort. The battle was designed to be outside the fort. So when you have two givers, as long as they can be others-oriented, and as long as they can develop ministry possibilities, and they're driven to do that, then you have a really usable couple that God can really make use of, and can raise great kids and just really do a great. And so, there does seem to be that dynamic of two different types of individuals in the world. So, if there are two different types of people, in that you have one type of person who has experienced divorce, and then one type of person who has not experienced divorce, those two don't see eye to eye on a lot of things, and certainly there are two kinds of people. In another realm, those who essentially are about themselves and those who essentially are about others. So my suggestion would be, if a person is single and they are an others-oriented person, they would want to make sure that they found another others-oriented person rather than possibly rescuing another taker or rescuing another broken
I found that
individual.
true in myself even after the divorce.
Uh-huh.
I still wanted to do things that would save him. I would be like, oh my gosh, this song would be so good for him. I want to send it to him, but he's not going to get anything from me. I just had to let that go.
No, you really do. In the case of our exes, of our broken exes who have let us go, we desperately still want to save them and make things right. But after all, there are going to be people in our lives that we're going to have ministry to, but we didn't have any ministry to the person we were married to when we were married to them. And we really need to get over the notion that we're going to have any now that